kind of, you know, Tegan is loud where Nissa is quiet, you know, that complementary kind of thing going on that really makes them a great pair.
Yeah. And I think Nissa has a great departure, if it is like a little abrupt. Her character is explored a little bit more in depth in the audios afterwards, and actually Sarah Sutton has one of my favorite companion chronicle. No, sorry, it's not even a companion chronicle. It's like one of the, it's seasons. Is it called seasons? Something. The episode itself is called Winter because they do like a sort of
Circular
like
time.
Circular Time. That's the one. Yeah. Now Winter is a beautiful episode. It takes place in the Doctor's mind palace while he's regenerating, and like basically Nissa is there with him in his subconscious and like is basically says farewell to him as he goes off to regenerate, and I just like I don't know like it's posted on Tumblr or someplace this audio, and I listen to it every so often because like it makes me cry honestly. He's like he like took my hand, he like kissed my forehead and stuff, and then ran off into to regenerate. Just it's beautiful, and I don't know. I think their relationship in particular is just very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we should move on to basically who I think is safe to say is like the most iconic of the family there, or like certainly the character that typifies what we think of the Fifth Doctor's era, and I think that's Tegan. Tegan is possibly the model for like every '80s companion that would follow. She like. What is so refreshing about her is that, like, I think she's the first companion that just absolutely wants nothing to do with the Doctor, doesn't want anything to do with time travel, just wants off as soon as possible so she can go to work. And, you know, as a woman of the '80s, that was very important. No, like, Tegan is very outspoken, she's very loud, abrasive, and, you know, she's just unlike anything that has come before. And I think she was like the model for many companions afterwards, and I think we see like you know a bit of Tegan in other like modern companions like Donna, you know. I love Tegan. I have like a lot of affection for her. She's just really funny to me, just because she is the subject, or she generates a lot of great banter out of all the characters, because she's just like not having it with anything, all of like the nonsense, all the time travel shtick, like she just does not care, and I love that about her. But also she has like an arc, which is really cool. You know, she doesn't want to be there, and then by the end of like the time traveling, you know, she's like, you know, actually like invested. She doesn't really want to leave, but like, you know, she feels kind of forced out because it's not fun anymore, and I feel like we feel her loss after she leaves like a lot. You know, like especially the Doctor, especially the way he reacts to her leaving. It's just like very disappointing for him because, you know, whether or not he thinks so, he has grown to care for her very deeply. When I think of Tegan, there's one moment from The King's Demons that I love. It's the very end of the episode. I forget even what she even says, but it's definitely something about him not being able to fly the TARDIS, and the Doctor just has like the face like he just wants to go off into a room and like throw something, and just like it's hilarious. So what do you think about Tegan?
I think she's great. I mean, the fact that she actually went in to the TARDIS because she thought it was a police call box. That explains, you know, the whole thing. She just wanted to get to her job. You know?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really an interesting take on a companion. So I just totally loved her, and you know, and I thought it was really the dynamic between her and Nissa especially.
Yeah, totally.
Like you said, she was definitely a model of basically a strong, independent '80s lady. Um, you know, we all said she's obviously interested in getting to her job. If you look at Time Flight, when they're rescuing the one plane load of passengers, she takes charge. She goes into air stewardess mode to get everybody back on the plane so they can all come back into the 20th century. You know, she interacted very well with the police chief in Black Orchid. She was teaching everybody to Charleston and just having fun. And you could tell she's the adult of the group, because in that story, when they're brought into Lady Cranley's house for beverages, and the doctor basically, like, Adric and Issa will have lemonade, I'll have lemonade. She just blurts out, I'll have a screwdriver. Alright? Pure Tegan. And the fact that she would just go toe to toe with the doctor and call him out. She called out, Turlo when he came on board. She didn't trust him. So she's also very perceptive. And I can tell you, you sit next to Janet, it's just still like you're sitting next to Tegan. Just an older version. It's I guess there's so much of Janet in the portrayal of Tegan.
Yeah.
And when she was on Power of the Doctor, it was like a 180 swing from her character. She was like almost like a little bit like Ace, being so brash.
Well, I think she always had that inherent that brashness. Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree with all of that. It's funny because as you were talking, Tim, I was thinking about how, like we said already, Nissa loses her father and we hardly ever hear anything about it again. But Lord knows you don't ever forget that Tegan wants to get to Heathrow Airport. It's like the closest thing to an ongoing, character arc that you get. But I also found myself thinking that it's really interesting that in the Five Doctors, Tegan is the one who pairs up with the cranky first Doctor. And who else could have?
Yeah.
Who else could have put up with him?
But she wouldn't make him tea.
No, she wouldn't.
Turlo had to do
That's
that,
right.
remember.
But she decides to go along with him and is a perfect match for him the whole time. And I don't know that anybody else could have done that. I think that's purely a Tegan thing.
I think they're. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no.
I was done.
Oh, okay. Well, like, I hate like mentioning the audio so much because like I feel like there is like a liminality to them, and their canonicity, should I say? But like, there's like a wonderful moment in like this one called the Gathering. I think I forget which one she's in, but there's like Cybermen. I'm pretty sure it was the first one Janet returned for, and it takes place like
That's
after.
The Gathering.
Yeah, it takes place after she had left, and like at the end of it, like the doctor says like, "Oh, do you want to come along with me again?" And like she's just like, "No, I think that time's passed." And I don't know, it's just so like bittersweet, and like she says like she has like cancer and stuff like that. It's very very sad, very sad. I mean, but I don't know. There is like a lot of love there, regardless, and I feel like they do kind of click together very well, even though they are very different. And whether Tegan admits it or not, a lot of affection for being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than I think she would ever admit.
Absolutely. So, like, what do we think about her appearance on Power of the Doctor? She was featured very heavily.
I thought she was fantastic.
She was great.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to evaluate that kind of thing really objectively because there is such a huge nostalgia factor. But I thought that both Tegan and Ace being in that episode were great choices and really paired up well together. In addition to just, good Lord, it's Tegan.
Yeah. I certainly got like a lot of like I can't even really call it nostalgia. I wasn't even alive during this time, but like I don't know, just like having watched her era, her time on it a lot. Like I don't know, I definitely got a lot of warm feelings seeing her on screen.
I think what did it for me is that both Tegan and Ace both had a moment with their doctors.
Right.
Even though it was AI, they, especially with Tegan, really resolved a lot of, like I said, inner conflict she had. And obviously she still felt bad about Adric's death. And to have the doctor say, there's nothing you could do, let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it,
Well, and also, did she see Cybermen again after Adric's
Yeah, she
death?
did.
Did
Yeah.
she?
Wait.
Oh.
Oh, after Adric's death, you mean like when she was traveling, or?
Yeah, like on the TV
No.
series.
Well,
I don't think she did.
Five
so,
Doctors.
Five,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, 5 doctors.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like a lot of the things in the classic show is just kind of like these things happen and then we forget about them.
But yeah, in 5 doctors, she did have that classic line when
Yeah.
she called out the master for like sacrificing, the Cybermen.
Like sheep.
Yeah, and then he says, well, on your Earth with the different wars, they did a similar concept with sheep.
Right
Yeah.
across
it's
the
like-
minefield.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
but yeah, she, and maybe part of that maybe was cathartic for her to kind of see that, since Cybermen were the ones that killed Adric.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, modern Who fans probably, a lot of us that probably just went over their heads, but like,
Yeah, this one right here.
Huh, what?
but
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just like
Explaining all
it's
Doctor
odd
Who.
feeling like that moment was really well
I
earned,
didn't
especially
watch the
like
Doctor.
just knowing that history and
Watch
like how it
the
culminates
Doctors.
and stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
But like again, I think what we most enjoy about Tegan is just like her attitude. I love her interactions with Turlo in particular. Like when I talk about like the Blake Seven quality of just banter, that's what I think about. They have like this one interaction that I think is hilarious, and I crack up just thinking about it. It's like I think it's during Terminus. Turlo says like, Tegan, do you think you could ever kill a person? And she just like looks at him and she's like, you're weird, Turlo. And just like they have all these moments like that, and it's hilarious. Like I mean, if there's like any Seinfeld fans in here, like I feel like their dynamic is very similar to like George and Elaine. Like Tegan may have warm feelings to like Nyssa and the Doctor certainly, but she just absolutely hates Turlo, and I love that. It tickles me to death.
Does she really hate him though?
No,
Because
Uh,
I am not convinced.
I
More
don't
like
know.
sibling.
I think she doesn't
Sibling
trust him at
rivalry.
first,
Mm.
justifiably.
Yeah.
And I think she gradually, first of all, she kind of begrudgingly is like, okay, we're stuck with you. But I think she does develop a respect for him, but she's not ever, ever, ever gonna admit it.
Mm.
And I think that, I mean, that's kind of how I see their relationship, especially, in a lot of the audios. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go after each other, but we know, yeah, Turlo's probably gonna try to run away, but when it comes to it, he's gonna come back and do the right thing. And, like, I can trust you to do the right thing in that moment, and until then, you're gonna be squirrely and okay, whatever, but
Yeah.
you're still my friend.
Yeah.
Also, in the Fifth Doctor, 5 Doctors, you had the classic banter between the First Doctor and Tegan. Stop calling me Doc.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good place to transition to, well, my favorite companion of this era, which is Turlo.
What about Adric? Kidding.
No, I love Turlo. Like when I conceived this panel, it was gonna be I had the idea for like panel on Turlo. He reminds me of like Blackadder. He's just like so snarky. Squirrely is a great word for him too. Sneaky, sly, and like I don't know, just like he'll always be the first one to run away, and I just love characters like that. They just like always make me laugh. And I just think it's like so interesting, especially with how he's like brought onto the show, with like trying to kill like the Doctor. He's like forced to basically by the Black Guardian, and nothing like that has like happened really in the show, that we had a character with like ulterior motives, that like had an agenda of their own, and that I think is like a fascinating dynamic, and honestly I would love it for them to do something like that again in a similar vein. And if I think about the idea of a reluctant traveler, it's certainly Turlo. He had like no interest in going along with them. Always just wanted to like leave, and was always the first to like run if it came down to it. And I love that about him. I think he has a great like ending too. Like returning to his home planet and stuff. I think he has like a very interesting start to his story too. Like just hiding in a public school, or like boys' private school actually. So yeah, what do we think about Turlo?
Well, you're right. He did have an interesting start. He just he couldn't stand being in that boys' school. I mean, he had to brig as a math teacher.
Yeah.
I'm right there, and the brigadier, even with his memories lost, still was a pretty stern taskmaster. But yeah, the whole Black Guardian, having him try to kill the Doctor, and then him giving up enlightenment to defeat the Black Guardian. It was a very good arc, but even at the end of his story, you could tell like he's just trying to like yeah, I'm from Tryon, and I was kind of basically exiled, so
Yeah.
having him come back And then, of course, when he looked out the scanner and he sees Perry, practically drowning, he's kind of got this,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I don't need this right now, but I'll go out and save this drowning person.
Yeah.
That's a really good encapsulation of Turlo, I think. He's like the most reluctant hero. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be the hero. He really doesn't want to do any of this, but when he's pushed, he will.
Hmm.
But I also think that it's a really good thing for us as an audience to have a companion that we don't know if we can trust.
Hmm.
It takes a while, kind of like it takes Tegan a while, and so you're never sure whose side he's on, you're never sure what he's gonna do. And there's an audio that uses that really well. I think it's the Jupiter conjunction, where he and the doctor have been locked up and are on trial for something that they obviously didn't do.
Hmm.
And Turlo proceeds to just hand them the doctor, confess to everything, yes, he pulled me into his life of crime, and whatever, to the point where even the doctor believes what he's doing, and none of it's real. He's making the whole thing up to buy them time.
Hmm.
But I think he recognizes, like, I have this squirrely, treacherous side, and sometimes, damn it, it comes in handy, and I'm gonna use it.
I'm Turlo in disguise.
Oh. Yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. He really does rise to the occasion a lot, like when called on to it. And yeah, like I think that moment when he does save Perry is like a good culmination of like that trajectory for him, like going from this like very unreliable person and then like totally just like going out to like save someone without like much of a second thought. So like with Turlo in particular, it just this idea of like a companion who does not want to travel with the doctor, but is put into this situation regardless. I think this is like a format or like a companion archetype, let's say, that like should be brought back, that should be explored some more. Like we've gotten like a lot of like companions that like think traveling with the doctor is like the best thing in the world, and like when we start hearing this like the classic tagline is "Trip of a lifetime." This is the most wonderful experience. I've learned so much from you. Like, I just think it would be refreshing if the modern show like were to just like say like, hey, let's look at the character here who's like who we don't actually really like. Like not something like Adam Mitchell. Who just is like one and done. But like I'm just saying like an ongoing companion who probably will just like not really. Just for flavor, just do something different,
What was also refreshing too is that back then we didn't really have companions
Right.
that wanted to hook up with the doctor.
No, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been pretty much since really, 10, 11, 13. It's just that, from a fan standpoint, we all, have our own little personal stories, but yeah, they traveled together, but there was, like I said, there was no kissing in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
There wasn't even really kissing among the companions. It was more like a family thing. So even if we got the companions that, like I said, didn't really gel with the doctor as much, didn't really say, oh, you're the greatest thing, I've done so much, like maybe some mistrust, like
Yeah.
Tegan had. I think that would again be refreshing.
Circling back to Turlo, like, what do we think about his relationship with the Doctor?
I think when they started having that period like after, especially after Tegan left, it was kind of the two of them. It was kind of, to me, it looked like a little bit more level.
Yeah.
Like they kind of worked well together because Planet of Fire especially, that's when you see them really working together before as Perry's being brought on board and Turlo's leaving. I think sometimes when you get again, Davis's error proved why you really shouldn't have too many people in the TARDIS. It's hard to write for 4 characters.
Yeah.
And then when they tried it again under Jodie, I was already going to say, there's going to be some missteps and some lack of character development. Of course,
Yeah.
First year, oh, we really don't know Yaz. You know, she wasn't really well developed.
Mm.
Yeah, you got like 4 people to write, and you got the first female doctor. You know, there's a lot going on. So yeah,
A lot on the plate.
yeah, and it's not like the old days where, you know, you wanted to give a character a break. You know, you write them out of an episode for, you know, a half hour. They go off, they go to vacation and all that, and they come, and you just slot them back.
Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
you gotta have them.
So, I guess just in terms of legacy, as we're wrapping up now, like,
Perry?
yeah, I was gonna get into Perry. So, like, the legacy really with this like format here. These characters don't want to be here. I think that carries into like Perry, and this is like where the format I think gets really stale. Where like the companions are just constantly complaining, and I think they take like this whole like idea of like a reluctant traveler, characters who don't really like each other, to a level that we're suddenly not enjoying this format. And I think we see that with Perry in particular, because the Six Doctors era is like known for their constant arguing. We have like, in fact, when I was watching the Two Doctors just like a few days ago, like she like, I don't know, there's like a bar like, oh, let's go here, and she's like, oh, must we? And it's just like, I don't know, I feel like that becomes the norm, and it really gets frustrating, I feel. What do we think about that?
It's funny because when you say that, it reminds me of something Turlo would say.
Yes.
You know, and yet you know that Turlo is going to go along, where I'm not sure Perry is quite as on board.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like charm, maybe. I don't know. Just like, no offense to Perry, no offense to Nicola O'Brien. It's just I don't think it's quite as successful with that character. You know, it just becomes like really tiresome. You know.
Maybe that explains why he tried to strangle her. After having, you know, his fifth
Yeah.
incarnation, he have all these companions that he argued with, and then he gets another one, and he's like, I'm done with this.
So strangulation, the logical conclusion for like characters who don't want to be in the TARDIS.
Yeah, probably the same thing we all felt too when we had, you know, when Adric was, as fans, we probably
Most punchable face, I told you.
punchable face.
Yeah.
But I think with Perry, again, the sense of, again, the reluctant traveler, you know, Tyler rescues her, brings her in, puts her in the bed, so she can recover. Doctor comes in, they take off, and then, you know, she comes out, and Turlo's kind of like, yeah, oh, I forgot to tell you, I just saved her from, like, drowning. And, too late, we're already going to, you know.
So, I guess like final thoughts on this. As you know, we're coming down to like the last 7 minutes. What do you think?
I think that it's an interesting era because almost nobody made a conscious decision to be in that TARDIS.
Yeah.
And I don't know, have we ever really seen that before or since? I don't think we have. And so, if nothing else, it's interesting as an experiment. I think it created some interesting dynamics. Whether or not they worked is another story. But, you know, it's part of what makes that era different and more interesting in a lot of ways than the others.
Yeah, like as you get into like the weeds of like